everyone, I hope you can all see and hear me okay. Got a very noisy fan, potentially very noisy budgies, but hopefully not. So I'm in your feed, and today I am here to talk about why is my dog, or Whippet maybe specifically, as we are in a Whippet group, or sighthound, why is my dog reactive? So it's been a while since I've done Facebook Lives between my health and Arkle's health. You can just see him there. It's just not been doable. So I scheduled this Facebook Live for Why is My Dog Reactive based on the poll results from the poll I gave you all in the group. With the Facebook Live, it is recorded. You can watch it back later. You can ask questions. You can make comments. It's always encouraging, rather than me talking to myself. So if you have a reactive dog, let me know in the comments, and let me know how old they are. And today we're going to talk about why they are reactive, and what common early mistakes we might be making when we notice reactivity, and how we can try and work towards resolving that reactivity. As always, I have lived with the Whippets too long and my brain goes in 100 directions, so I'm going to try and stick-ish to some notes that I've made. Will it happen? We'll see and find out. But again, feel free to comment, let me know. You should be able to comment. Yeah, it says it there. If you are commenting though, and I'm not responding, it might not be appearing on here, and I'll apologise in advance. So I always think that everyone in the group has seen the group, but Facebook algorithm is weird, so I'll just quickly say I'm Zara. I've lived with Whippets for 15 years. I've had 4 Whippets and a terrier who possibly thought he was a Whippet at the end, and I'm a dog trainer and behaviourist. I have mainly worked with reactivity cases for the last 14 years, and a lot of those are Whippets these days. I love reactivity and working with owners and their dogs is a huge passion of mine, because I have lived with reactivity, Arkle is reactive, and I understand the toll it takes on us, as well as our dogs, and sort of the lifestyle we end up leading because of it. So I totally get reactivity, not just from a outside perspective. I totally get what it's like to live with a reactive dog, and the embarrassment and the frustration, all of those delightful emotions. So I love working with reactivity because I want to make everyone happier and have less stressful lives. So we'll go all in. We'll start now. So what is reactivity? I think it's important to define that, just because everywhere online has started labeling everything as reactivity. Other trainers who are popping up are like, oh, that dog's reactive, oh, that dog's reactive, your dog is reactive, and the dog's usually just doing normal dog things, like looking at another dog or getting a bit excited. For me, reactivity is very simply an over-emotion, whether that is barking or lunging, and it's directed towards something we would not like it to be directed towards, or would not be normal for them to direct it towards, which is dogs, people, that kind of thing. Whereas for me, a normal behaviour for a sighthound is to have prey drive, and so they would bark and lunge at cats, for example, or bunnies, or whatever it is you're seeing out on your walks where you are. I don't call prey drive reactivity, because prey drive is a completely separate entity. It is a normal instinctual behaviour that our sighthounds should really have. Mine is asleep. But prey drive is not, I don't like to call it reactivity. This is a hill I will die on. Reactivity is not something that is instinctual, whereas prey drive is instinctual. So if my dog is reactive to cats or wildlife, they're not reactive. I've used the wrong word, really. If they are displaying prey drive, then it's not reactivity, it's prey drive. They're lunging and barking because they want to get to it, and they're not able to. So that's what reactivity is. So what can cause reactivity? Why is your dog reactive? Why is your dog reactive but your neighbour's dog of the same age isn't reactive? Reactivity is often really complicated, because what is really important to understand is that it's not a conscious decision they're making, it's an emotional reaction. It comes from fear, frustration, conflict, lack of confidence, all sorts of different things, which I'll come to a bit more later. But it is very complicated, so I'm going to just summarise everything in a smallish, digestible way. Hopefully I won't bang on for hours. But there are a lot of causes for reactivity, and there are lots of different things that can scaffold a dog to become reactive. Very few dogs are born as reactive. I have met dogs who the first time, you know, their owner takes them on a walk, they're barking at everything in sight, but that would be more of an unusual thing for me to see. But I have seen that. Usually there are other causes. So one of the main causes we will know as owners is that our dogs can become reactive due to experiences that they have had in life. So that can be, and that can, you know, I always say that the easiest one to think of is, has our dog been attacked by another dog? We're always pretty likely to know that that is a cause for reactivity if our dog has been attacked by another dog. That's a really negative experience, and so the dog is going to in future react from a defensive place to keep other dogs away because they had such a negative experience with other dogs. Arkle has been attacked by another dog, and that's probably a small contributing factor for him, but not a massive one. But it's not always big negative experiences. It can be lots of repetition of small negative experiences where they've met another dog on the lead and they've not enjoyed it, or maybe they've been chased by another dog when they're running and they actually didn't like it. It doesn't actually have to be a negative experience. It can just be an experience of overwhelm and over emotion. So sometimes I will see dogs who are reactive because they have spent a lot of time at like daycares or like group walks when they were young, and they have learned that being around other dogs is a very emotional experience where they can, you know, play and run, and they're getting all of this stimulation out of these other dogs, and they're getting very overexcited by being around these other dogs. And that you know, that's not a negative experience. Your dog's having a great time. It's like they're at Disneyland, they're having a really good time. But then when they're not allowed to go to Disneyland, you know, they see a dog across the street, that can be very overwhelming, and that can be, you know, trigger reactions. So it's not always a negative experience. Sometimes it can be other dogs have triggered such a huge level of emotions that then that builds into frustration when they're on the lead later. And I do see that quite a lot. When I was doing a lot of puppy classes, it was really obvious which puppies were going to daycare and which weren't, because the puppies who are going to like big, and I'm talking like I'm not talking like little daycares with 3 or 4 other dogs. I'm talking like daycares with maybe, at least locally here, there are some with 15 to 20 dogs, and you could tell, probably more, you could tell these puppies came in, they were ready to rumble, they were like, why can't I play? This is what I do around dogs, and it's this big emotion. So experiences can impact why a dog becomes reactive. Was it lots of small negative experiences? Was it a big negative experience? Have they been overwhelmed with emotion around dogs? Or is it the complete opposite, which also happens, and have they had just not enough exposure to form positive experiences, so that when they are around dogs it's like an off-leash dog running at them, and then those experiences are the only experiences that they have with other dogs, which I see happen quite a lot. If you there's a lot of advice like to, you know, make dogs neutral, have them like isolated and focused on you, and then they don't get a lot of social interaction, and then when they have an off-lead dog come running, that's the most exposure they get to being close to a dog. It's sort of no wonder those dogs will end up a little bit reactive, because their primary experiences are negative ones and a lack of positive ones, if that makes sense. So one thing that will contribute to why a dog is reactive potentially is the experience that they've had. It doesn't have to be in that early socialization period. It can be for some dogs. Arkle was possibly attacked by his mum. He had a lot of scars on him. That's possibly a reason why he is reactive. Another reason is genetics. So talking about whippets and genetics can get me in trouble sometimes, because everyone says that whippets don't have reactivity. It's not something they should have, and I agree. As someone who loves the breed and has had them, you know, only 15 years, I got whippets because they're relaxed, laid back, and they're, you know, happy dogs. That's what I looked into anyway. Whereas I know that there are a lot more whippets being bred now, and I know of a lot of whippets that are reactive who will be bred from because they are deemed like a good family dog, aside from like reactivity, and maybe they're very good physically and such. But genetics make a big difference to how our dogs behave. That's why we have different breeds, because we have bred specific lines to have specific behaviours. And I think, unfortunately, what can be happening is that if we are breeding from reactive parents, then genetics, we don't think of personality traits like reactivity are, genetically passed on, but they are. So epigenetics, the experiences the parents will have, is imprinted into their DNA. So it gets passed on. It's all a bit more complicated than I can always explain, but essentially, if the parent is reactive or a relative is reactive, there is more likelihood that the offspring is going to be reactive. So we do need to bear in mind that genetics plays a part. If any family members were reactive, they're probably going to pass that on, unfortunately. Which is why we shouldn't breed from dogs who are very reactive or have separation anxiety or any of the above, because they are not breed-related behaviours that should be in Whippets. That's why you need to check your dog's your future dog's prospective parents, for behavioural things, because it is becoming something that does happen a bit more than we would like. And so one cause for reactivity can be genetics, another cause can be individual temperament is, something that plays a big part. You can have really good parents and relatives and generations of good breeding, and then you can have a litter and just one of them can be very anxious or overwhelmed or easily over-aroused. And that is going to happen because individual temperament will always vary. And that means that, within a litter you can have, I'm trying to think of the size of a litter, someone said 8 yesterday, you could have like 6 or 7 really confident outgoing dogs, one that ends up reactive and one ends up really nervous. Individual temperament will tell you a lot about how your dog is going to develop. So an individual temperament is like what you can see with your puppy, like what is their baseline behaviour. Arkle was a terrified puppy. That was a lot of red flags. He was scared of literally everything as soon as I brought him home. And that told me that he was quite a cautious dog and he potentially had potential to go on to be reactive. And as an individual dog, he doesn't like being sociable. He never wanted to be sociable. He's a very unusual Whippet. He didn't really like living with other Whippets. He doesn't really like Whippets. It's Arkle's world. We're all just living in it, apparently. But individual temperament will go a long way into dictating whether your dog becomes reactive or not. Another thing we often don't think about, I do, but maybe not everyone thinks about, is medical issues. I know some of you will be sick of me banging on about medical issues, but I would say at least 80% of the dogs I work with for reactivity or aggression have some sort of medical issue underlying. Why do medical issues cause reactivity? It's pretty similar to humans in that if your dog has pain, whether that is muscular or bone pain or joint pain or something like that, or gut pain, gastrointestinal issues, that is going to make their tolerance to things much lower because they're already stressed and they're already a bit overwhelmed. And within that it becomes a bit complicated because if we've got a dog who is in pain, and sight hounds can be prone to back issues, spinal issues, it can be prone to a few different things. If they are normally like a friendly dog, but a dog jumps on them while they're in pain, just playing, they are going to associate that other dog with pain. They're going to start to associate dogs with, I am in pain. They don't understand why that pain is caused. They don't understand, it was just that dog playing. They just know that when dogs came up and got close, it hurt. They're going to want to keep dogs away in future, potentially. So medical issues can play a big part. And if someone says to me, my dog is reactive on some days, but they're not reactive on other days, that is a bit of a red flag to me that their dog has probably got some level of discomfort somewhere, because their level of pain or discomfort is going to vary day to day. It's not going to be like linear. It's not always going to be the same. Most dogs, like if you know a human with chronic pain, they have good days, they have bad days. Dogs are the same. And that can be why we see some inconsistency with some reactivity. It's because sometimes that dog is in a larger amount of pain than other days. Arkle is like 2 different dogs, pain, not pain. He's quite extreme. He is not bothered by dogs, just not interested when his pain is managed. When his pain isn't managed, he is very reactive, fixates, stares, lunges. He does not like dogs, and it's quite extreme in his behaviour. And this applies to other behaviour problems too, like Arkle doesn't have separation anxiety unless he is in pain, and then he is quite anxious about me being away from him, which is fun because you have to predict his behaviour based on his pain. But pain and medical issues can often be at the root of it. It isn't always like a chronic issue like like joint issues or IVDD or anything like that. I have worked with a lot of dogs where they have gut issues, so they may have underlying issues like parasites like Giardia or infections like Campylobacter, can never pronounce it, or something like that. And once these things are dealt with, the dog is a lot more relaxed, a lot more happy, because having a gut infection or parasites is going to make you short-tempered, and I often see this in puppies where maybe they've eaten something and that sort of goes on to affect their behaviour. So causes for reactivity could be experiences, genetics, individual temperament, or medical issues. What are not causes for reactivity? Reactivity is not because you're too nice to your dog. I don't know how else to put it. Like, the people are like you're not firm enough with your dog and that is why he's reactive. You have not given him enough leadership. You have not given him enough boundaries. That is just rubbish. That is not why your dog is reactive. Your dog is not reactive because they are sitting there processing, oh, are you a good enough leader? Do I need to, I don't know, protect you, protect that? I don't know what they think they're on about with that, but it's not a cause for reactivity. It's not a failure of obedience. Reactivity isn't. It's not a failure of obedience. It's not that they're being stubborn. It's not that they're being dominant. It's not that you have not given them enough rules, and that 9 times out of 10, it's not that they're protecting you either. So people can often say, well, I think my dog's protecting me because he is reactive with me, but he's not reactive with dog walker or son or husband or whatever it might be. Is he protecting me? I always go, well, it's not usually like that. Dogs, especially sight hounds who are very prone to just sort of keeping their head down when they're a bit stressed, can be very prone to showing their true behaviour with the person they feel most comfortable with, most safe with. Like, I had a reactive Whippet, Marley, that must have been, 14 years ago now. I took him to a trainer, and the trainer, Marley reacted to people, dogs, you name it. He was terrified of them. He did quite a big barking and lunging display, and he had a bite history with people. And this trainer said, give me Marley. And she handed him to a random man. Marley didn't know. Marley didn't bark and lunge. Her conclusion was that Marley was picking up on my stress, and that when he was with me, he was trying to protect me. That poor dog was so terrified. His tail was tucked, his ears were pinned. He couldn't take treats. He was terrified, but he was so overwhelmed by being handed to the stranger that he didn't display any reactive behaviour. He wasn't protecting me when he was with me. He was just felt safe enough to say, hey, I'm not comfortable, I'd like this thing to go away. And it works that way. With other situations, your dog is, does feel safe with other people in your household. They do feel safe with your dog walker, but they may feel less safe to do that big display, and they may instead go into that more like overwhelmed, sight hound, sort of fear, shut down behaviour. So have I ever seen protection in a Whippet? No. Potentially some breeds who are bred for that kind of behaviour, but I would still argue there is some other stuff going on. So I wouldn't say that is a cause for reactive behaviour. One thing that often happens is I see a lot online is someone will post in a sight hound group or a Whippet group, and they'll go, hey, my dog's reactive. And maybe they've nipped at someone, or, maybe they haven't. And you will get 100 comments going, that's not normal. Your Whippet's got severe issues. You've done something wrong. Whippets shouldn't be like this. You've made a massive mistake. No, this isn't what they're like. This is disturbing. A Whippet shouldn't be reactive. They shouldn't bark at stuff. Look, Whippets are reactive. Whippets are like any other breed in that respect. It is not anything you've done. They are reactive. Most of my work is with most of my work, first of all, is with Whippets, and second of all, most of those are reactive Whippets. It like overwhelms anything else I work with. I work mainly with reactive Whippets. Why do I mainly work with reactive Whippets? Because there are a lot of reactive Whippets out there. It is not that unusual. Should it be? That's a whole other, debate. but Whippets are currently quite prone to reactivity. Why can they be prone to reactivity? As a breed, they are impulsive, they are quick to react, they are, easy to get full of adrenaline, and then they don't make good choices. So sometimes arousal control is something they can struggle with, and that could be why we see reactivity, because they, I know with Marley it was a big problem. As soon as he saw something, his adrenaline was through the roof and he was reacting. Didn't matter if he was 4 fields away, there was no time to do anything because his arousal levels just went so high. So they can be easily adrenalized, and they can be quick to react. That's the whole function of a whippet. They're quick to react. They notice small changes in the environment. They notice small changes in our behavior that tell them there's something in the environment. They are prone to reactivity. It does happen. You are not alone. Don't believe any comments that tell you it doesn't happen and it's weird and unusual. It does. It happens a lot. So I don't think. By the way, I'm not ignoring anyone. If you have left comments, cannot see any on here. I just want to say that in case there are any. Oh no, I start clicking stuff and then things happen. I'll stop clicking stuff. I'll see what happens. I can't. No, I don't want to write a comment. There we go. So when dogs start to become reactive, like I said, most puppies are not reactive from the moment they go out. Most dogs are not reactive from the moment they are exposed to the world. So why do we see dogs go from being seemingly okay to reactive? And usually that will happen if we're going to see reactivity. It tends to pop up during adolescence when they're like 6 months to 9 months. You can almost guarantee that's when reactivity will pop up. It's part of those hormonal surges. What happens when that reactivity starts to pop up is that we can make some really easy, common mistakes that will, in the long run, not help us massively. We don't make these mistakes intentionally. They're just, accidental, or we've been given some odd advice, or whatever it might be. One of the common mistakes that we can make is we just think it'll go away on its own. A lot of people say to me, I used to get it a lot in puppy classes. Someone came in with a puppy who was starting to become reactive, and I'd say maybe we should do some sessions, like get started with this now. People would think, no, don't worry, Zara, he'll grow out of it. He'll grow out of it, don't worry. As he matures, it'll stop. They don't grow out of anything like that. This is a behavioural difficulty. It's an emotional problem. They don't grow out of it. They will grow into it, because the more they do it, the better they get at it. If you stop and think, hey, they're just going to stop doing this one day if I just let them roll with it, it's pretty much not going to go away. But a lot of people would think that, and they will think that, or they will have busy lives, and they'll be like, well, we'll work on it later. Reactivity is something you want to, as soon as you see signs of it, start to do some proactive work about it, rather than thinking, hey, it's just going to disappear one day. So that could be a mistake we make, and then along with that, we can go like the other extreme where our dog starts to show some reactive behavior. So we start to go, right, they need to meet more dogs, they need to be more well socialized. Socialization ended at 12 to 14 weeks. That's when it ended. Socialization finished. You cannot do socialization again later. So when we start putting a reactive dog, whether it's for fear or frustration, we start putting them in a room with other dogs or meeting loads of other dogs, all we are doing is just triggering more emotions. Whether that's fear of I don't want to be here, or frustration of I want to play, I want to be off lead, running. Just suddenly throwing them at a lot of dogs without a lot of other thought isn't going to do much productive. But that's often the first thing we do, is we go, right, we see it online, let's get them socialised, let's do all these things. We're on TV shows. Don't watch TV shows for dog training advice. It's entertainment. Please don't listen to them. It's a whole rant I can go on elsewhere. So that's one thing. That's one mistake we can make. Another mistake we can accidentally make is that we miss those signs of the dog behaving well. I see this all the time, working with a reactive dog, out and about. The dog's not reacting to a dog. I'm like, that's amazing. Reward that. And the owner's like, why? Well, in about 5 seconds, he's going to start reacting. You've sort of you accidentally miss the moment where they made the good choice. Because what we want to do is teach them that looking calmly at other dogs and being around them, that's something positive. Whereas a lot of the time we will miss that moment, wait for them to react, and then try and always like correct that reaction. The reaction is happening because they've been pushed to quite a length that they can't control their emotions anymore. So we sometimes miss those moments. One of the biggest mistakes I will see people make is try and distract their dog, their reactive dog. And that is, you know, you see a dog, they get a treat, they say either here's a treat, don't look at that dog, or they say like watch me, here's a treat, watch me. Distraction isn't going to change their emotions. It's not going to stop them reacting. It's not going to stop their behaviours because they've not changed how they feel about that trigger. They've not learned how to process it. They've just been taken away in that moment. And sometimes that is needed for management. But if that's the only training we're doing is distracting them, we're not going to change anything, because it's just, we're going to just keep having to be like, no, don't look at that dog. No, don't look at that dog. No, don't look at that dog. They're not learning what they should do around that dog because there's no other sort of clarity, and they're not learning that they're positive or anything. You know, distraction is one of those things. Like I always say, look, let's say I'm scared of spiders. There's a spider on the wall behind me. I'm going to want to be able to see where that spider is, because if I don't see where that spider is, or someone says, hey, look at me for a minute, don't look at that spider, I'm going to look to them, I'm going to look back, oh my god, where's that spider gone? Could be anywhere, could be on me, could be anywhere. If you have a fear of something and someone says, don't look at it, you're going to start wondering where it is. I'm not scared of spiders, but I am scared of wasps. And I've had this with people with me where they're like, oh, don't worry, Zoe, there's a wasp that's landed on you, but don't worry. And I'm like having a nervous breakdown. I need to know where it is to assess my reactions. So I don't recommend, I really don't like wasps. Very suspicious things to me. But distraction is a mistake that we often make. And then it reduces our dog's trust in us if they're fearful, and it reduces their engagement with us if they're frustrated, because we just become the fun bullies, distracting them from things they're interested in. We ideally want to build those behaviours where they can observe dogs at the right kind of distance, where they're not going to react. Right kind of distance is going to be the thing that makes the big difference. Other mistakes we can make are using punishment like shouting at your dog, pulling on the lead, anything like that. Is not going to reduce their reactivity. If anything, it's probably going to increase it, that they are going to start to associate other dogs with you getting mad at them, and again, maybe some physical pain if we're yanking at them or anything similar to that. They are going to associate that trigger with being in trouble, physical or verbal reprimands, and that is not going to help their emotional reaction to it. We don't want to use punishment. It doesn't help in the long run, doesn't help in the short run, doesn't help. One mistake that I see a lot of people make is they say, and I used to get this a lot, is they think that the problem with reactivity is their dog doesn't listen, they're not obedient, so you'll maybe book in like some classes for your reactive dog that aren't aimed at reactivity. But the issue isn't a lack of obedience, the issue isn't a lack of training, it is that your dog is overwhelmed by other dogs. And I would be rich if I, got a penny for every time, so even just a penny, someone booked a course with me and they turned up with this big reactive barking lunging dog to a village hall, and I'd be like, oh, this is not the place for your dog. Not because people would misinterpret it, not because I'm annoyed that your dog's barking, but because your dog is so overwhelmed. This isn't the cure for it. It isn't the cure for it. It is, you're just going to put your dog in a room with loads of other dogs. That's probably not going to help if you haven't got any strategies to handle that situation. I can't believe my dog's not moved at all. Look at him. Yeah, that's a life. So there's some common mistakes. How do we handle reactivity? Given some information, but not a lot. I have other lives I've recorded on how to handle reactivity, but I will go over some quick stuff here. Reactivity isn't something I can just say, hey, right now, go do this, and it's gonna work for you. This is just general advice. Your dog is potentially different. Your dog is an individual. This advice may not apply for them. This is more general, overarching information. So How do we handle reactivity? We're not going to punish them. We don't want to put them in situations they can't handle. I know you'll hate it when I say that, but if you're going down on the same walk every day that you know they will bark and lunge at a dog if they're on that path that you go down, you need to not go down that path. You need to find a different walk temporarily. This isn't a permanent thing. This isn't let's just not deal with it. This is making sure they don't rehearse the barking, the lunging, they're not getting filled with adrenaline, they're not getting filled with, hormones that stress them out. We need to try and adapt their walks to what they do enjoy, because walks are meant to be enjoyable for us and them. I think my desk just nearly exploded at me touching it, which is weird. We need to make sure the walks are enjoyable and stress-free with no reactions. I will have a look at that. I've seen a comment. I will come to that, I promise. I can't multitask is what I've always discovered recently. So we want to, oh no, I can't multitask. Who knows what I was saying? I'll move on from that. Yeah, we don't want to put them in situations they can't handle on walks, because they're just going to keep rehearsing the reaction. So we need to be aware of that. We need to change our walks. We want to work on changing their emotions. So if they see another dog, we want to pair it with a positive. We give them a treat. Can we give them a high value treat? People say, oh, Zara, that doesn't work. My dog isn't food motivated when he's reactive. It's just a little misunderstanding. I don't want you, please don't ever put your hands with a treat near the face of a reactive dog. They're potentially going to redirect aggression onto you. When they have reacted, that is not the time to train. It is the time that comes before that. We want to be finding walks where they can see dogs at a distance they can handle, and we want to be training them there. Once they have started to react or they start rejecting food, means we are too close. We are over threshold. We are not in a safe distance. We need to be at a safe distance. Whether it's fear, whether it's frustration, this works the same, because if they are barking, they are overwhelmed. It is a sign that they can't cope. They cannot learn in that frame of mind. That isn't the time to get the treats out and try and train them. It's the time to retreat. The time to train them is where we are specifically going out to work on that behaviour and try and scaffold good behaviours or good experiences, calm reactions at a distance. We want to work on why they might be reacting. Why are they reacting? Do they have enough outlets to decompress? We have sight hounds. Do they have opportunities to run in a safe way? Do they have opportunities to chase toys that they might like to chase? Do they have opportunities to decompress? Society expects a lot of dogs, whereas society, the world they live in has changed so dramatically. A lot of us live in busy areas with lots of noises and things going on, and we're taking them out more than we used to with, to events and things. They need some decompression and stress reduction a lot of the time. Sniffing games are great for this. He loves to shred a paper bag. He's alive. Sometimes he does stuff. And he loves to shred paper bags. Things that help them feel good and lower their stress. Sometimes we don't think this is a contributing factor to reactivity, but very often it is that there are some needs that we need to be meeting a bit more to help them be able to learn and process information, if that makes sense. That's everything I've written down. So I am going to come to a question that popped up. Do feel free to ask questions, make comments, do anything. It's fine. That is the point of this. This is where I have to try and squint at my screen and read. Charlotte says, I'm so confused by Dottie and her reaction. She loves to play and meet dogs, but in the house if she sees a dog or person or sound outside, she's barking like mad. When we go to our ring craft class, she can be a bit loud to start with, but after some time she calms and stops. I reward every time she looks at a dog. Sorry, something's popped up so I can't read the rest of it. Hang on. Oh, and doesn't react. Okay. So hang on, I have to read and work my brain. I mean, in different situations it can be different emotions. In the house it could be that she's startled and she doesn't want things near her house, and it's, that would be a normal level of reaction. Maybe I've just lived with a terrier for too long, but I sort of expect a bit of barking in my house. But it would be, I would use the same sort of approach. I just might need to have treats knocking about my house and mark and reward when I hear a noise and reward them and they don't react, which sounds weird, but works amazingly. So if she loves to play and meet dogs, if she loves to play and meet dogs, you always have the option of rewarding her for disengaging from the situation and looking at you, rather than rewarding her for looking at them, depending on the scenario. For things like ringcraft, I can talk. She can be a bit loud. Sometimes it's like the start of something and the anticipation that could increase arousal. And this is why, like, some of the dogs I work with, we have like set up ways to manage arriving at places so they arrive calmly. That could be as simple as playing the up and down game when we arrive, or doing find it in a car park, you know, getting there a bit earlier and calming them down so that they don't, as you know, I used to have this with a lot of clients' dogs going to classes, and they would bark, and especially like Labradors, for some reason they're not meant to bark, are they? But they'd get there and they'd bark and they'd be like, feed me food for an hour, this is great. So I would often say to her, work in the car park, do some calm walking circles, engagement, up and down, bit of find it, lower arousal before they came in, and that always worked really, really well. You know, reactivity in those instances can like be, you know, context specific. It's sometimes about tweaking to that specific context if that's the case. I know that nearly all of my whippets do become a bit reactive coming out of a car when they know it means we're going somewhere good, because I don't drive, so they always assumed in the past, before all of Arkle's vet visits, that when we got out of the car it was a good walk, it was somewhere good. And I remember with Arthur, he would like bark at anything coming past the car for the first few minutes, never anywhere else, never in any other situation. So we did a lot of work on rewarding him for engaging with me, playing a bit of touch, doing a bit of circles, just walking in circles, that kind of thing. But I've gone on a tangent. They can definitely be reactive from different emotions in different contexts and different situations, rather than it all being like the same sort of emotion. Yeah. And in the house, if they're easily startled, we can play noise confidence games, we can play marking and rewarding them for not reacting to something. So I will recap if anyone has any more comments or questions. I hope you haven't, I've not missed in one way, but I hope you have, and you type something in a minute and I can see it, and I know I can see some comments because I've seen Charlotte. Sometimes Facebook just likes to mess with me. A lot of the time Facebook likes to mess with me. So we talked about why is my dog reactive. It can be experiences they've had, genetics, baseline personality, medical issues. It's not because they're stubborn, they're dominant, you've not been a good enough leader. It's a case of certain hands can be prone to it because they are prone to reacting to things that move fast, and they are reactive to situations. We talked about common mistakes, distraction, using punishment. I always go back to my notes. I can hear my budgies trying to kick off in the background, so I know I'm on a time now. By the way, if anyone has any advice for me on how to mute background sounds when you're on a Facebook Live, that would be incredible. Because I have to cover them at the minute, and it's a bit of a faff for them and for me, and it's why I'm not doing many. So feel free, please, if you have any advice. Do I need a microphone? I just need budgies not to scream in the background. There is nowhere else in this house I can do these lives. It has to be in the room with the budgies. I would appreciate advice on that, completely on a tangent. I will do more of these if I can get advice on that. That's all I'm going to say. So about how to handle reactivity, and I will put up some links with more information on reactivity as well. I can see Charlotte's comment. Hang on. If we go out to events, I take sniffing toys, long-lasting chews, but we always have some off-lead chasing time when we are out to be good at seeing dogs at a distance and returning to me without reacting. That's good. My comment that she's very loud and confident for a whipping and never shows shaking or cowering. House is loud. There's lots of neighbours, so she's always heard noise. Yeah, and the thing is though, she's sort of, it was her birthday, I think, wasn't it, yesterday? So she's 1, I think. She's going through adolescence, and that is also going to impact their behaviours. So things that they were once really confident with and noises that we're fine with in the home, they can just suddenly become reactive to those sort of things. It's definitely quite normal. I would say just on that note, hang on, no, okay, no, just trying to click things so I can see. No, that's fine. I'll just have my screen covered in comments. I don't know how to switch them off or reduce them. It's very annoying. Facebook just doesn't function like a normal thing. So I would say that a lot of the reactive dogs I work with don't ever cower or show any signs of like fear in the traditional sense. A lot of my clients, reactive dogs will fool around as whippets. They don't always show like fear. They will fool around, be overly giddy, and it can look like they're fearful. This is just a general comment. It can look like they're fearful. It can look like they're excited, but they're actually not. I see that a lot in little clips of, dogs having a fun time playing, and actually the whippet is not having a fun time playing. They're defensively playing, and then trying to get the play to stop, but in a, oh, I'm having a good time. We all know that person, don't we? That goes, I'm having a good time, this is great, I love it, I love it, I love it. And they're not having a great time. Fool around is a response, as well as fight, bark, lunge, flight, run away, fool around, or flirt or fawn in some capacity is, oh, I'm absolutely fine, and we're over the top. And then freeze is when they freeze and stand still. I think that's it. They don't usually faint. So there's my discussion on why is my dog reactive. It's a very general discussion. It isn't specific to your dog. You might find that there are things that don't align with your dog, and that's going to be the case because I can only give very general information on these. I don't have a behaviour questionnaire for your dog or anything like that where I can see lots of little different pieces of information. So what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to pop some links in the comments to information on reactivity, other videos I have done on reactivity. I obviously have this Ham Reactivity Hub, which I need to do way more with, which is another Facebook group that I will tag. And then I also do offer, tailored reactivity support with one-to-ones on Zoom. I can do them anywhere in the world. I'm usually somewhere else in the world rather than the UK a lot of the time on Zoom. So we can do them. Come up with plans that are tailored for your dog based on questionnaires and information and all of this kind of stuff. And then I have the School for Whippets, which I always forget about. I always forget I've got the School for Whippets, my online monthly subscription. You've got that with not just reactivity course, but every course that I've done to date, and will keep being updated with new courses, webinars and stuff like that. So you have all of that information. Yes, I do book sessions in the daytime. So it's a good question. My calendar has lots of availability because I know everyone's different. I have weekend availability, evening availability, morning availability, early afternoon availability because I'm in different time zones quite frequently. That's a clock, by the way. Then I have a lot. I will put links in the comments if you did want to. If anyone wants to book anything at all, there are lots of options available. And if you can't see a time that does suit you, just give me a shout. There is a chance I can change my times around. I just might need a heads up. Hopefully that has been helpful for people. I think the time of day and the day has been a bit rubbish for a lot of people, so I know there's not loads here. So if you're watching this later, feel free to comment. I'll come back and I'll reply. Feel free to post in the group. There are a lot of people with reactive dogs. With reactive whippets. It's not just your whippet. There are a lot of people out there, but there is support there, can help you. Here is my reactive whippet, looking very non-reactive at the minute, because he's asleep. That's all he does post-surgery, is sleep, which he thinks is amazing. I will go. I can chat for hours. I've just chatted to myself, more or less, for I don't know how long it's been. But I'll go. Genuinely, if anyone watching this has any good suggestions, whether you're watching it now, later, in 10 days, for tuning out the sound of other things in the background, and budgies are very noisy, it would be much appreciated. I promise I can do way more of those if I can tune out those noises. Thank you for watching. Sorry for the bungee tangent. Really would love advice. Have a good Sunday. Comment even if this is, later. You have any questions, give me a shout. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining in. Have a good day.